My name is Emma, I'm 34, and I found out my fiancé was sleeping with my own sister when he bragged about it on his friend's livestream. Before I tell you how his father's testimony in court led to a permanent restraining order and the implosion of his entire life, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. It was a Friday night. One of those long, exhausting weeks where all you want is a glass of wine and the blessed silence of your own home. I'd spent the last 10 hours putting the finishing touches on a custom engagement ring, a delicate, vintage-inspired piece that had taken me a month to perfect. My work, my jewelry studio, was my pride. I'd built it from scratch, turning a passion into a business that now brought in a respectable salary, enough to support myself and, as it turned out, my fiancé, Jason. I kicked off my shoes, poured that glass of wine, and sank into the couch. That's when my phone buzzed. It was a notification. Tyler, Jason's loudest friend, had started an Instagram Live. The title was Groom Tribe Confessions. I almost ignored it. I should have ignored it. But a little flicker of something made me tap the screen. The video was shaky, filmed in what looked like a crowded, noisy bar. Jason was front and center, his face flushed, a cocky grin plastered across his handsome features. He was 7 years younger than me, and right then, he looked every bit the immature frat boy. And the best part is, she has no idea, he was slurring, laughing to his friends. Emma's such a dumbass, just funding my lifestyle. The wedding, the car, everything. My blood ran cold. The wineglass felt heavy in my hand. Tyler egged him on. What about the business, man? You gonna take over? Jason puffed out his chest. Once we're married, that workshop is mine. I'm turning it into a studio for my influencer career. She can keep playing with her little trinkets in the corner. My little trinkets had paid the $22,000 deposit for our wedding venue. My little trinkets were about to pay for his parents' flights. But the final punch to the gut, the one that knocked all the air out of my lungs, came next. Besides, Jason sneered, leaning into the camera, her sister is way hotter. And she doesn't talk about work all the time. He winked. Olivia knows how to have fun. If you know what I mean. The comments on the live feed were flying by, laughing emojis, flame icons. My world, in that moment, narrowed to the glowing screen in my hand. My sister. My baby sister, Olivia. The one I'd practically raised, the one I'd given money to more times than I could count, the one my parents always took her side. Be nice to your sister, Emma. You're the older one, you have to be more understanding. Why are you always so hard on her? Understanding. Yes, I was beginning to understand perfectly. My fingers moved on their own, my mind a cold, clear void. I tapped into the comment box. My name, my profile picture, popped up in the feed. I typed, good to know what you really think. Wedding's off. I hit send. And I watched as Jason's face, projected to hundreds of people, went from cocky to cooked. His eyes widened. The color drained from his cheeks. The feed abruptly cut out. The silence in my living room was deafening. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, the screen dark, and felt the last 10 years of my life crumble into dust around me. This wasn't the first betrayal, of course. It was just the loudest. My whole life had been a quiet accumulation of them, little paper cuts that I'd learned to ignore. I remembered being 10, when Olivia, then 3, had smashed our grandmother's antique porcelain doll. I was the one who got grounded for not watching her properly. My parents' logic was always the same, Olivia was the baby, the golden child, fragile and adored. I was the responsible one, the strong one, which was their code for the one whose feelings didn't matter as much. That dynamic never changed. When I started my business, pouring every cent of my savings and working 80-hour weeks, they called it a cute hobby. When Olivia dropped out of college for the 3rd time, they paid her rent and told me I should loan her money to find herself. That loan was never paid back. Jason had fit into that pattern perfectly. I met him when he was a 20-year-old part-time retail clerk with big dreams and an empty wallet. I was 27, already establishing my studio. I thought his charm was refreshing. I mistook his lack of ambition for a free spirit. My best friend, Rachel, saw it from day one. "He lets you pay for everything, she'd said over coffee just a few months ago. "He didn't even show up to your business awards ceremony. He said he had a branding meeting. I defended him, of course. "He's trying to build his own career, Ratch. It's hard." "What career?" she'd shot back. "Taking selfies in the clothes you buy him?" I'd been hurt, but she was right. He'd belittled my work, calling my intricate designs shiny rocks. He'd suggested I give up my prime workshop space so he could have a backdrop for his videos. I'd seen the late-night texts from Olivia, but I'd told myself I was being paranoid. They were just becoming friends, planning surprises for the wedding. The lies were so much easier to swallow than the truth. The truth was a jagged pill. And now, thanks to Jason's drunken ego, I'd been forced to swallow it whole. 40 minutes after the live stream ended, my doorbell rang. Not a polite chime, but an insistent, angry buzz. I knew who it was. I looked through the peephole and saw Jason, flanked by his mother, Karen. She was a woman who wore her condescension like expensive perfume, always looking down her nose at my manual labor profession. I opened the door. "Emma, thank God," Jason started, his voice a desperate whine. "Baby, you have to listen to me. It was just stupid guy talk. A joke. Tyler was feeding me drinks all night." Karen stepped forward, her eyes sweeping over my simple home attire with disdain. "Emma, let's not be dramatic. You can't seriously be considering calling off a wedding over some foolish boys' banter. Think of the deposits. Think of the embarrassment. A divorce would be one thing, but this, it's just tacky." My hand was still on the doorknob. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just looked at him, at the man I had planned to build a life with. There was no remorse in his eyes, only panic. The fear of losing his comfortable lifestyle. As if on cue, my phone buzzed in my hand. A text from Olivia. To Jason. But he was standing right in front of me. She must have sent it to our family group chat by mistake. It read, "I hope she didn't see anything. Tell me you fixed it." My thumb moved, taking a screenshot before she could delete it. I turned the phone and showed the screen to Jason. "Fix this," I said, my voice flat. His face went white. Karen peered at the screen, her lips tightening into a thin, disapproving line. Before either of them could fabricate another lie, my phone rang. It was my mother. I answered, putting it on speaker. "Emma, what did you do?" she began. "No hello, no are you okay?" Just accusation. Olivia is in tears. "How could you embarrass your sister and your fiancé like that in public? You're always so dramatic, making everything about you." I listened to the familiar script, the words that had shaped my entire existence. I was the problem. I was the one who needed to be more forgiving, more understanding. My pain was an inconvenience. I looked at Jason's pleading face, at Karen's smug one, and I heard my mother's voice telling me to swallow my own heartbreak for the comfort of others. And in that moment, something inside me didn't just break. It forged itself into something new. Something hard and sharp and unbreakable. "I'm done," I said, my voice quiet but carrying the weight of a final judgment. "I'm done with all of you." I ended the call. I looked at Jason and Karen. "Get out of my house," I said. It wasn't a request. It was an order. I closed the door on their stunned faces, locked it, and leaned against the solid wood, the first real barrier I had ever put up in my life. The next morning, the adrenaline had worn off, replaced by a hollow, aching exhaustion. But there was no time for grief. The war had just begun. My first call was to Rachel, who just said, "It's about damn time. I've already looked up the best lawyer for you." My second call was to that lawyer. Her name was Sarah Mitchell, and her voice was calm, professional, and exactly what I needed. "Document everything, Emma," she advised. "Every text, every call, every interaction. We'll start with a formal cease and desist letter." The letter didn't work. If anything, it made them more desperate. That afternoon, while I was meeting with a client, my manager, Diego, called me, his voice tight with anger. "Emma, you need to get back to the workshop. Now." When I pulled up, I saw it. Jason and Olivia were standing just outside the entrance, stopping customers on their way in. Jason was trying to play the part of the heartbroken fiancé, while Olivia was putting on a show of tearful sisterly concern. "She's not well," I heard Olivia telling an elderly woman who was a longtime client. "She's having a breakdown, making things up. We're just so worried about her." I saw red. I got out of my car and walked towards them. "Get away from my business," I said, my voice low and dangerous. "Emma, we're just trying to talk to you," Jason said, reaching for my arm. Diego, a big, burly man who was fiercely protective of me and my staff, stepped between us. "She said to leave," he said, his arms crossed. "The next time you show up here, I'm calling the police for trespassing." They finally left, but the damage was done. The client they'd spoken to called me later to cancel a large order. She was uncomfortable with the drama. That was the start of their smear campaign. They couldn't control me anymore, so they decided to destroy me. They created fake online profiles, leaving one-star reviews on my business page, claiming my jewelry was fake, that I used cheap materials. They contacted my suppliers, spreading rumors that I was going bankrupt. It was a coordinated attack, and it was working. I lost 2 major corporate clients, a hit that cost me over $30,000 in projected income. The financial pressure was immense. The $22,000 wedding deposit was non-refundable. My savings were dwindling. For the first time since I'd started my business, I was scared. Truly scared. One night, sitting alone in my workshop, surrounded by invoices I wasn't sure I could pay, I hit my breaking point. The strength I'd felt just days before evaporated, leaving behind a raw, exposed nerve of despair. I buried my face in my hands and finally cried. I cried for the love I thought I had, for the family that had never been a family, for the business I was terrified of losing. I called Rachel, my voice choked with sobs. "I can't do this," I whispered. "They're going to win. Maybe I should just give up. Let them have it." "Don't you dare, Emma Thompson," Rachel's voice was fierce, a lifeline in the dark. "This is what they want. They want to break you. You are stronger than they are. You built that entire business with your own 2 hands and your incredible talent. You are not giving that up for a spineless boy and his jealous little enabler." Her words were the steel I needed for my spine. She was right. This wasn't just about money or a workshop. It was about my life's work. My identity. And then, as if the universe had heard my decision, a notification popped up on my phone. A message request on social media. The name was Adam Wilson. I recognized him as one of the guys from Jason's live stream, one of the ones who had been laughing. I almost deleted it. But I opened it. The message was short. "Emma, I know we don't know each other well, but what Jason and Olivia are doing is wrong. I can't be a part of it. I have something you need to see." My heart hammered against my ribs. I wrote back, "What is it?" A moment later, my phone began to buzz, over and over. He was sending me screenshots. Dozens of them. It was their group chat. The Groom Tribe. And it was all there, in black and white. "Jason, campaign takedown Emma is a go. Olivia is contacting her clients." I'm handling the online reviews. Tyler, dude, this is epic. You're gonna own that place by Christmas. Olivia, just got Mrs. Albright to cancel. She said Emma sounded unstable. This is too easy. Jason, told you she was a pushover. Always has been. My dad keeps telling me to be a man and fix it, but this is way more fun. There were messages planning every fake review, every call to a supplier, every lie they had told. It was a detailed blueprint of their conspiracy. And at the very end, a message from Olivia to Jason that made my stomach turn. Olivia, once you get the business and we get the inheritance from your parents, we'll be set for life. I can't wait to get out of this town and away from my family. Especially her. Inheritance. It had never just been about my business. It was about my future, my security, and the life they planned to build on my ruins. I saved every single screenshot. I forwarded them to Sarah, my lawyer. Her reply came back within minutes. This is it, Emma. This is more than just harassment. This is a coordinated conspiracy to commit fraud. They didn't just start a war. They just handed us the victory. The day of the court hearing for the permanent restraining order felt surreal. I walked into the courthouse with Sarah by my side, my hands clammy, my stomach in knots. Jason and Olivia were already there with their lawyer, looking polished and confident. Karen was there, too, sitting in the front row, giving me a look of pure venom. My own parents hadn't even bothered to show up. Their lawyer went first, painting a picture of me as a volatile, vindictive ex-fiancé, a woman scorned, who was using the legal system to harass this poor, innocent young couple. They claimed the live stream was a doctored video and that my business was failing due to my own mismanagement. It was a masterclass in gaslighting. Then it was our turn. Sarah was magnificent. She was calm, methodical, and ruthless. She presented the evidence piece by piece. The time-stamped live stream video. The security footage from my workshop showing their aggressive behavior. The financial statements showing the direct impact of the client cancellations. With each piece of evidence, I could see the confidence draining from Jason and Olivia's faces. Then, Sarah presented her final exhibit, the screenshots from the group chat. She projected them onto a large screen for the judge to see. A collective gasp went through the small courtroom. The messages were undeniable. The plot, the malice, the conspiracy, it was all laid bare. Jason and Olivia's lawyer was sputtering objections, but the judge silenced him with a wave of his hand, his eyes fixed on the screen, his expression growing darker with every message. I thought that was the climax. I thought we had won. But Sarah had one more card to play. Your Honor, she said, her voice ringing with authority. The prosecution calls one final witness to the stand. Mr. Robert Parker. A murmur went through the room. I turned to see Jason's father, a man I had always respected, a retired military officer with an unshakable moral compass. He had been sitting silently in the back of the courtroom. Jason and Karen stared at him, their faces a mask of pure shock. Robert walked to the stand, his back ramrod straight. He was sworn in. Sarah began her questioning. Mr. Parker, you are Jason Parker's father, is that correct? I am, he said, his voice heavy. And you are aware of your son's relationship with Ms. Emma Thompson? I was. I was very fond of Emma. I thought she was the best thing that had ever happened to him. Mr. Parker, Sarah continued, her voice gentle but firm. Are you aware of your son's actions over the past few weeks? The campaign to damage Ms. Thompson's business? Robert's jaw tightened. He looked directly at the judge. I am. Then, he turned his gaze to his son. It was a look of profound, soul-crushing disappointment. Your Honor, Robert said, his voice cracking with emotion. A week ago, I discovered the extent of my son's behavior. I confronted him. I offered him a choice. I transferred $50,000 into his account. I told him it was his to keep, on one condition, that he use it to pay back Ms. Thompson for every cent she had lost, and then he was to walk away and never contact her again. It was a chance for him to do the right thing. To salvage a shred of his dignity. The courtroom was dead silent. Jason looked like he had been turned to stone. "And what was his response, Mr. Parker?" Sarah asked. Robert took a deep breath. He laughed. He told me I was a fool. He said, "Why would I take 50 grand when I can get the whole business for free?" He said that Emma was weak and that she would eventually come crawling back. Robert's voice dropped to a near whisper. "My company, my family's name, is built on integrity. On trust. My son has none. He not only defrauded a good woman, he has disgraced our family name." He looked back at the judge, his eyes filled with a terrible sadness. "I cannot stand by and watch him destroy an innocent person's life. He is no longer the man I raised." It was over. The testimony was a nuclear bomb that had vaporized their entire defense. Jason was openly weeping, a pathetic, blubbering mess. Olivia was staring into space, her face completely blank, a doll with its strings cut. Karen looked like she had aged 20 years in 20 minutes. The judge didn't hesitate. He granted the permanent restraining order, his words like hammer blows. He forbade them from contacting me, my employees, or my clients, and from coming within 500 feet of my home or my business. He then looked at their lawyer and said, "And I highly suggest your clients prepare for a civil lawsuit for damages, because from where I'm sitting, Ms. Thompson has an ironclad case for defamation and tortious interference." I walked out of that courthouse feeling empty. There was no elation, no triumphant joy. Just the vast, quiet emptiness of a battlefield after the war is over. Rachel was there, wrapping me in a hug, telling me how proud she was. Robert Parker approached me, his eyes full of apology. "I am so sorry, Emma," he said. "For everything." I just nodded, unable to speak. I didn't go home. I didn't go out to celebrate with Rachel. I drove straight to my workshop. The place that was my sanctuary, the place they had tried to take from me. The air was cool inside, smelling of metal and polish. I walked over to my main workbench, the surface scarred and burned from years of work. I picked up a piece of scrap silver, a remnant from a past project. I lit the torch, the hiss of the gas filling the silence. The blue flame roared to life. I held the silver in a pair of tongs and brought it to the flame. I watched as the solid, unyielding metal began to glow, turning from cherry red to a brilliant, molten orange. It lost its shape, its form, its history, collapsing into a shimmering, liquid pool. All the pain, the betrayal, the humiliation of the past few weeks, I poured it all into that fire. I was melting it down. Burning it away. When it was nothing but a formless puddle of liquid light, I turned off the torch. I let it cool, watching it harden into something new, something that bore no resemblance to what it was before. I picked up my sketchbook and a charcoal pencil. My hands, which had been trembling in the courthouse, were now perfectly steady. And I began to draw. I didn't know what it would be, but I knew it would be born from this fire. It would be a story of survival. A story of rebirth. The months that followed were a blur of intense, focused work. I poured every ounce of my energy, my pain, and my newfound freedom into my craft. The collection that emerged was unlike anything I had ever created. It was bold, architectural, and fierce. I used jagged lines and asymmetrical shapes, combining raw, uncut stones with highly polished metals. Each piece told a part of the story. There was a necklace with sharp, protective edges, like armor. There were earrings that looked like stylized tears, forged in fire. I called the collection Phoenix. During this time, the world outside my workshop continued to turn. Robert Parker filed for divorce from Karen. Jason and Olivia, facing social and financial ruin, disappeared from town. I heard through the grapevine that they had broken up, their toxic alliance crumbling once the promise of my money was gone. One afternoon, as I was setting the final stone on the collection's centerpiece, the bell on my workshop door chimed. It was my mother, Margaret. She looked older, smaller than I remembered. She stood uncertainly by the door, her eyes scanning the powerful, almost aggressive pieces of jewelry displayed around the room. "Emma," she said, her voice quiet. "This is incredible." It was the first time in my life she had ever praised my work without a but attached. She walked over to the centerpiece, a stunning necklace that looked like wings forged from silver and obsidian. She reached out a tentative hand but didn't touch it. "I saw what you were making," she said, her voice thick with emotion, and I finally understood. She turned to face me, her eyes swimming with tears. "I was always so afraid for Olivia. So protective. And I made you pay the price for it." I waited, saying nothing. "There's something you don't know," she whispered, twisting the strap of her purse. "David, your father, he isn't Olivia's biological father. She was from a mistake I made, long before we were married. He raised her as his own, but I always carried this terrible guilt. I felt like I had to overcompensate, to give her everything, to protect her from a truth I was too cowardly to tell. And in doing so, I failed you. I saw how strong you were, how capable, and I took it for granted. I used your strength as an excuse to ignore your pain." The confession hung in the air between us, explaining a lifetime of hurt in a few short sentences. It didn't erase the pain, but it colored it with a new, tragic light. "I am so sorry, Emma," she sobbed. "For not protecting you. For not being the mother you deserved." I looked at this woman, my mother, and I didn't feel anger anymore. I just felt a profound sadness for all the years we had lost. I didn't rush to hug her. I didn't offer easy absolution. But for the first time, I saw a path forward. "I'm going to therapy, Mom," I said softly. "To work through this. Maybe, someday, you'd consider coming with me." It wasn't a promise of forgiveness, but it was a glimmer of hope. And for now, it was enough. The Phoenix exhibition was a massive success. The story behind the collection, which I shared honestly and vulnerably, resonated with people. Every single piece sold on opening night. Critics called it a triumph of art over adversity. It was more than a financial victory, it was a validation of my journey, my talent, my survival. The final scene of this chapter of my life isn't what you might expect. There's no new man sweeping me off my feet, no dramatic family reunion where all is forgiven. It's much quieter than that. It's a week after the exhibition. The workshop is clean and quiet. The money is in the bank. The restraining order is a piece of paper filed away in a drawer. My future is a blank page. I'm standing at my workbench, the familiar weight of my tools in my hands. The evening light streams through the window, catching the dust motes dancing in the air. I pick up a piece of gold, feeling its cool, solid weight in my palm. I look down at my hands. These hands. They once paid for a cheater's car and a liar's rent. They once trembled in a courtroom. Now, they are calm. They are strong. They are my own. They are the tools that will build my future, piece by piece, on my own terms. And as I light the torch and the flame roars to life, I don't see the ghosts of the past. I see the shimmering, brilliant promise of what's to come. And for the first time in a very long time, I smile. A real, genuine smile of peace and of power. My power. Thank you so much for listening to my story. It wasn't easy to share, but I know so many of you have faced your own fires. My question for you is, what was the moment you knew you had to stop letting others dictate your worth and start fighting for yourself? Let me know in the comments below. And if my story resonated with you, please give this video a like and subscribe for more. You are not alone.